CachyOS seems to have taken the Linux world by storm, and there are very detailed explanations as to why with regards to performance and optimizations and such. But I think the answer is actually a lot simpler. One that has actually seemed to have happened before. See, unlike Ubuntu and Debian based distributions, which you can see here like Mint, MX Linux, Pop! OS, Debian, Zorin, and then down here Ubuntu. So you can see that there are a lot of options. However, with Arc OS, if you want Arc without the pain, there aren't really that many options. And really the two of the biggest, I'm not familiar with Endeavor. So three. There are three major options. I'm not familiar with Endeavor, but there is CachyOS and there is Manjaro. So, and I think that the biggest reason is for CachyOS, its popularity, is that Arc without the pain and that lack of competition. And again, there are very detailed explanations as to performance and optimizations, some of which I'm not knowledgeable enough to say I disagree, but I would say that these are optimizations and things like that I haven't really noticed using Ubuntu-based distros versus Arc-based distros like CachyOS. And actually, I've done some videos on that if you want to check them out on my channel. But other than that, when it comes to Arc-based distros, there's really those three to choose from, unless you are one of those people that uses Arc alone. And this was actually kind of visible before, about, I don't know, like 5-6 years ago. I remember when Manjaro kind of took the Linux world by storm as well and topped the charts. And I actually used to use Manjaro and I loved it. I loved Manjaro. It was a slick desktop for the time. That was, back then, that was pretty much the only way I could use Arc Linux, because I remember tried setting up Arc myself, but it didn't get to work, so I didn't want to get that deep. So I had set up Manjaro and I had used that for some time and I had loved it as well. Again, not because, to be honest, not because there were any sort of performance enhancements or optimizations. I didn't notice anything, as opposed to when I used to use Ubuntu-based distros, but I thought, hey, let me try something Arc-based, and back then that was literally the only option. Not saying that it was the only option that it was bad. No, I loved it. I loved using Manjaro. And I think that's kind of what is happening again with CachyOS. It's something new, it's something trending, and it's, the thing is, it is great. That's why people are trying it and sticking with it. It's kind of that Arc without the pain. It's cutting edge, so you're getting the latest. For example, with KDE Plasma, you're getting the latest Plasma desktop, whereas if you've seen on my channel, on my Pop! OS install, I don't have the latest Plasma desktop, because that's not going to come out until the next, likely not going to come out until the next Pop! OS release. Same with a lot of these LTS, these I think the term is bleeding edge desktops. So you kind of get the latest and the greatest with CachyOS. And again, same thing previously with Manjaro, 5-6 years ago. Same exact thing. You get the latest and the greatest. However, due to that fact, it is a little bit less stable than your LTS releases. Stuff that you would get with Ubuntu, with Pop! OS, so on and so forth. So in a way, I really don't know how to describe it other than a trend in the Linux world, and a trend for a very good reason. It's a great desktop. I've been using it now for I don't know how many months, and I absolutely love it. I personally love how much I can customize, and how much I can set up with it. Heck, I even have Cosmic on my install. And however, the reason why I like it is, to be honest, for me, not because of some sort of optimization, or I didn't notice any performance enhancement. And actually, if you look at the videos that I made, the best performance I felt and I actually tracked was on Pop! OS. But that could be because of the desktop environment, not necessarily the distro itself. So it's really great to see these numbers on a Arc-based distro. And it's really, really amazing to try. A really cool desktop to try. If you have the disk space, whether you're using Windows or you're using Linux, and you have the disk space to install alongside, heck, go ahead and give it a shot. I will say the one thing is, and I'm not the only one to report this, it's a very easy desktop to use. It's, again, Arc without the pain. However, if you can get past the installer, I mentioned in another video about CachyOS where there seemed to be this issue where if I had selected desktop environments that were not compatible with each other, you wouldn't necessarily get any sort of warning. And then when you get into the installation phase and it actually starts installing the operating system, it fails with some error code. And you're left to guess why it failed. And that is one of the reasons. However, that is not the only way that the installer fails, and it seems to fail somewhat commonly. I remember another error code I was getting, and I was just installing one desktop environment. I wasn't installing others, and I had still gotten some random error code. I looked it up, and a user had mentioned just, try reinstalling it again, and it worked, and I reinstalled it and it worked. So I think if you can get past the installer, which by the way is very intuitive, and it's not like, for example, the Fedora installer where it's not a linear path. No, it's a very intuitive installer. It's just that's the only thing about it, is just that installation I've noticed, and I'm not the only one to encounter these errors during the actual installation process. So I hope you enjoyed watching. Just thought to share that about CachyOS in case you were you had some expectations in mind and you wanted to kind of compare with reality.